Good afternoon. I'm going to read a little bit more from Mrs. Piggle. Miss Crocchio did ask that our videos be under 5 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to read as long. So when we left off, they had just went over to Mrs. Piggle's house to get the leadership pills. All right, because remember, we have our character who is acting like a bully. The yard, the front porch. In fact, Mrs. Piggle's whole house was alive with children. They were swinging, digging, sewing, building, painting, singing, teeter-tottering, all busy and happy until Nicholas opened the gate. The first thing he did was deliberately to bump into and tip over a little boy on a tricycle. Then he stepped on the fingers of a little girl sitting on the steps playing jacks. His mother was glad to see that when he came out of the house with the bottle of pills, the little girl who had been playing jacks hit him with a big stick and then ran in the house and slammed the door. Nicholas started after, but his mother honked the horn and shouted at him to come and get in the car. On the way home, she told him how disgracefully he'd acted, but he only hummed and smiled and acted very unsorry. She gave him one of the leadership pills even before she unpacked the groceries and sent him up to his room to study his geography and think about his loathsome actions. She also had him take off his shoes and put on his bedroom slippers. He said, "I like these big new shoes. They kick hard." Well, at dinner that night, even though his mother kept looking at him, hopefully there was not much evidence of leadership on Nicholas's part, unless you can call being the first to the table and eating the most leadership. However, he didn't step on Josephine's tail, and he didn't kick the cat, and he did walk quietly in his bedroom slippers. Mrs. Semicolon was drinking her second cup of coffee when she suddenly remembered poor little Roscoe and the crayons, coloring books, and cookies she had promised him. She called Mrs. Eager to see if Roscoe was still awake, and when she found he was, she put the things in a basket and was just putting on her coat when Nicholas said, "Let me take the things over, Mother." Knowing how Mrs. Eager felt about him, and also realizing that Mr. Eager, who was noted for his violent temper, was home, she said, "Are you sure you want to?" "Yes," said Nicholas in a strange, quiet voice. "I'll go change my shoes." After he had left with the basket, Mrs. Semicolon said, "Forthright, I'm worried. I know that it is right that Nicky should take those things to Roscoe and apologize, but I'm worried about Hilton Eager. You know what a terrible temper he has. What if he should hit Nicholas?" "Oh, serve Nicky right," said Mr. Semicolon unfeelingly. "I suppose you are right," said Mrs. Semicolon in a worried voice. She cleared the table, washed the dinner dishes, fed the cat, fed Josephine, wrote a note to the milkman, and mended a tear in Nicky's play jacket. Nicky still hadn't come home. She and Mr. Semicolon played a game of cribbage. Mrs. Semicolon usually beat him all to pieces, but tonight she was so worried she couldn't count. Finally, Mr. Semicolon said, Come, Carlotta, stop worrying. Nicky's all right." "But what about Hilton Eager and his terrible temper?" Just then, the front door opened, and Nicky came in. He was whistling. His mother called out, "How was Roscoe, Nicky?" "Oh, he's okay," said Nicky. "We played a couple of games of darts." "How are his legs?" asked his father. "They're pretty scratched up," said Nicky. "I'm going to ride him to school on my handlebars tomorrow." "Did you apologize to him?" asked his mother. "Yes, I did," said Nicky cheerfully. "He was real nice about it, but his dad gave me an awful bawling out. For a couple of minutes, I thought he was going to sock me. Mrs. Eager wouldn't speak to me at all at first, but after I apologized, she made us some cocoa. She's awful nice. Well, I got 2 more pages of geography to do. Good night." Rather self-consciously, he kissed his mother and father, something he hadn't done for weeks. In fact, ever since he'd become a big, swaggering bully. The next morning, at breakfast, Mrs. Semicolon gave Nicholas another leadership pill. Later, she was pleased to see how carefully he helped Roscoe onto the handlebars of his bicycle. All right, so far, leadership pills are making him a little bit nicer. We'll see what happens next. See you later.